Welcome to Salem. I figured this would be a good port of entry for the story of Lovecraft in Salem. This is where many people came in, was their port of entry between smugglers, sailors, immigrants, and the like. A lot of mysterious cargo came in on this port here. This was the second richest seaport in the country, and through it they influenced a lot of American politics. Also a lot of inventions like the light bulb, the first house lit by electricity, a magnet that could lift 1,000 pounds. In the distance you can see that large white building there. Before it was burnt down in the 1914 fire, that was the site of the country's largest steam-powered factory that Tesla came to town and built a power plant for. Tesla has a long history of this area through Mark Twain, and who Mark Twain introduced Tesla to the Hammonds, who he gave the son who had this strange castle frequented by spiritualists and psychics throughout the years. All the inventions he didn't want to pursue, and it was actually Donald Trump's uncle who would go to that castle looking for Tesla's schematics for a death ray that he couldn't find in his hotel in Manhattan. So Lovecraft came through here, probably through land, not this port, but he came here in the summers of 23 and 24, coming up from Providence. And in his trips, he would see many of these buildings that he would then ascribe to tales in his stories. He would name Arkham, would be Salem up to Ipswich. Ipswich would be Innsmouth, and Marblehead to the south would be Kingsport. There was a couple buildings that we don't mention these photographs or these videos, but it gets a little too far to walk to. Like Danvers State Hospital, which became was Arkham Asylum, and the thing on the doorstep, and I think a couple other tales of his. My friend John Archer actually tried to preserve those buildings, and he took cupolas and other architectural remnants and added to his newest wing on his mansion. Very interesting character. So there's also a couple of places in Marblehead, it's not too far off, that's mentioned. And there's one other home in Danvers that I can't think of offhand. But sit back, enjoy, and look at the different links I have sent you and the locations on Google Maps of where these are, and learn a little bit more of Lovecraft and Salem. This is a bit like Crown and Shield House. It appears in Lovecraft's story, A Thing on the Doorstep. This house, which was originally behind the Salem Hawthorne Hotel, next to the Salem Commons. It was a very convoluted story about bodily possession, and a tale of a man who was explaining why he had to kill his best friend in the body of his dead wife. Crown and Shield was one of the ship captains in town, and he leased this building to Reverend Bentley, who was the Einstein of his day. He was known and sought after by most of the politicians in Boston at the time. This has actually given him a close ear to John Hancock, who, after the British invaded Boston, moved the provincial Congress or provincial assembly to Salem for 2 weeks before going to Concord. And I believe it was from Salem that they sent members to the Continental Congress. So this home was originally behind the Hawthorne Hotel. Now is placed in front of it in the corner. Here we have what's in Salem is the Essex Institute. In Lovecraft stories, you would call this the Miskatonic Institute. Salem Institute had a couple other buildings in here, including the Social Library and the Salem Athenaeum, one of which was acquired from some privateers robbing a Irish prince's library and being sold in town. And one of the people who acquired it was Edward Augustus Holyoake, and he would be the leader or the founder of the Salem Athenaeum. Those two libraries would merge and find a new location further uptown near where Rob Zombie had filmed Lord of Salem, where it would have been his wife's apartment right next door to the Athenaeum. Also in the 90s, this building would host H.P. Lovecraft film festivals, part of the Haunted Happening events, or particularly to the Peabody Essex Museum, who owns this building now, events, eerie events. So the Masonic Institute would be in, I believe, Herbert West Reanimator, Into the Mouth of Madness, plus many other books of Lovecraft. Here we are on the walkway up to the witch house. It's mentioned in Lovecraft's work, Dreams of the Witch House. It's mentioned in a letter to Reinhard Kleiner. This originally was a home of Jonathan Corwin, who was one of the officials during the witchcraft hysteria. There was some paperwork signed in this home upon who was being accused at the time. On this property also was Roger Williams in a previous house, who was a founder of Providence, Rhode Island. That would give Lovecraft some interest since he was a Providence resident. Here we go, walking through the old burying point, found in 1637. Lovecraft used this spot here, I think he might have called it Charter Street burial ground. And it was in the Pickman's Model short story of his. So, a lot of the people connected to the witchcraft hysteria would be buried in here. Plus a lot of the different smugglers who built the tunnels within Salem. Found out one little secret about the place. The back wall had some great mulberry trees that we just picked recently. I never knew what they were. I just thought all these ink stains on the sidewalks were just kind of interesting below the old seawall, which is in the back of this graveyard. The South River used to come up to the back edge, and now it's a good, maybe 200 yards away from that old seawall. So, this is the burying point from 1637 that's in Pickman's Model. This is called the old Derby House inside of Lovecraft's story thing on the doorstep. As mentioned before about the Crown and Shield, the Bentley Crown and Shield house. And this is another home that's in connection to Lovecraft's lore. Now, in that thing in the doorstep, they do mention the Crown and Shields and the Derby's families. It might not have Cthulhu come through into their family loins, but they were up to a lot of shady dealings. There's a reason why Eliza Haskett Derby Sr. became America's first millionaire. He had two different color eyeballs, and I've heard it said that that comes from eating your twin in the womb. Now, this home is one of the homes connected to tunnels in Salem. His wharf was right across the street. On his wharf, there's a look at that. Now, it was built in 1762 by his father on the marriage between the Crown and Shields and the Derbys, who were supposed to be bitter political rivals. Well, one was Federalist, one was Democratic Republican. It's called game theory. And better to get 50-50 or something than a 16th. Coke and Pepsi understood this, so did Russia and America during the Cold War. So, this home, very mysterious at the time when the father built it for this marriage, because it was the first brick house in Salem in a long time, because everyone knew in Salem that you do not live in a brick house, because one man had lived in one prior, caught a cold and died. So this was the first brick house in a long time that was built in Salem.